A broke young waitress collapses in the rain, burning with fever, only to wake in a stranger's car. But he's no stranger. He's Lucian Moretti, the most dangerous man in the city, and he knows everything about her name, her address, the men watching her apartment. Her missing father stole millions from the Mafia, and now deadly enemies want her blood to draw him out. Trapped between a father who abandoned her and a ruthless boss who claims he'll protect her, Sienna Vale is about to learn that survival means choosing which monster to trust. Like this video, comment what city you're watching from, and follow me to see how far this story travels. Now, let's begin. The rain came down like bullets. Sienna Vale stumbled along the cracked sidewalk, one hand pressed to the brick wall beside her for balance, the other clutching her empty purse against her chest. Her uniform, cheap polyester, stained with ketchup and coffee, clung to her skin. Every step felt like walking through wet cement. Her head pounded. Her vision kept blurring at the edges. She'd made it 3 blocks from the diner before her legs started shaking. 4 blocks before the fever spiked so high she couldn't remember which direction led home. 5 blocks before she realized she was going to fall. "Come on," she whispered to herself, teeth chattering. "Just get home. Just make it home." But home was still 6 blocks away, maybe 7, and the world was tilting sideways. The streetlights bled together into smears of yellow and white. Her knees buckled. She hit the pavement hard. The rain kept falling. Cold concrete pressed against her cheek. Somewhere far away she heard car tires hissing through water, voices shouting, footsteps pounding closer. She tried to push herself up. Her arms wouldn't cooperate. This is it, she thought dimly. This is how I die. Broke and sick and alone on a goddamn sidewalk. Then she heard the car. Not the distant hum of traffic. This was different. Closer. The engine purred like something expensive, something that didn't belong in this part of town. Headlights washed over her, bright enough to burn through her closed eyelids. The engine cut off. A car door opened. Footsteps. Steady. Unhurried. "Jesus Christ," a man's voice said, low, controlled. "How long has she been out here?" "Don't know, boss." A second voice, rougher. "Maybe 5 minutes?" Street cameras picked her up 2 blocks back. "And you're just getting here now?" Traffic was, "I don't want excuses." The first man's voice dropped into something colder. "Get her in the car, carefully." Hands slid under her shoulders, her knees. Sienna tried to fight, tried to speak, but her body was shutting down. The fever had her in its grip, pulling her under. She felt herself being lifted, felt the rain stop hitting her face as they moved her under cover. Leather seats, warm air, the smell of expensive cologne. "Who?" she managed, forcing her eyes open just a crack. The man sitting beside her came into focus slowly. Dark suit, dark hair. A face too sharp to be kind, too controlled to be safe. His eyes, pale gray, almost silver in the dim light, studied her with an intensity that made her skin prickle even through the fever. "Rest," he said. His voice was silk over steel. "We'll talk when you're lucid." Don't know you." "No, but I know you, Sienna." Her name in his mouth felt like a violation. She tried to sit up, tried to pull away, but her body betrayed her. The fever dragged her down into darkness, and the last thing she registered was the smooth acceleration of the car and the steady weight of his gaze. When Sienna woke, everything was wrong. The ceiling above her was too high. The mattress beneath her was too soft. The sheets smelled like lavender and something else, something clean and expensive that didn't exist in her world of thrift store blankets and coin laundry. She sat up too fast. The room spun. "Easy." That voice again, the man from the car. He was sitting in an armchair near the window, one leg crossed over the other, a glass of amber liquid in his hand, watching her. Still wearing that dark suit, though he'd loosened his tie. In the daylight, was it daylight? The curtains were drawn. She could see him more clearly. He was younger than she'd thought. Maybe 30, maybe less. Handsome in a way that felt dangerous, like a knife with a pretty handle. Everything about him was precise. The cut of his suit, the angle of his jaw, the way he held himself perfectly still while his eyes tracked every breath she took. "Where am I?" Sienna's voice came out hoarse. "My home." That's not an answer. It's the only one you need right now. She threw off the covers. Silk, she realized with a jolt. Actual silk. And swung her legs off the bed. She was wearing different clothes. Not her uniform. A soft cotton shirt, loose pants. Panic spiked through her chest. Who changed my clothes? A doctor. He took a sip of his drink, unhurried. You had a fever of 104. Pneumonia, probably. You've been unconscious for 18 hours. Maz, 18 hours. Her mind raced. Mr. Chen at the diner would have fired her by now. Her landlord was already threatening eviction. She'd missed her shift, missed her pay, missed, I need to leave. She stood up. The room tilted again, but she locked her knees and held on. I need to get back to... Sit down, Sienna. Stop saying my name like you know me. But I do know you. He set his glass aside and leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Sienna Marie Vale, 23 years old. You work at Chen's Diner on 5th Street, usually the evening shift. You live alone in a studio apartment on Maple, 3rd floor, broken lock on the fire escape. You're 2 months behind on rent. You have $47 in your checking account and $0 in savings. Your father disappeared 4 years ago, and you haven't heard from him since. The floor dropped out from under her. How? Her voice cracked. How do you know that? I know a lot of things. He stood, and suddenly the room felt smaller. He was tall, at least 6'2", and he moved with the kind of fluid control that came from money or violence or both. I know men have been watching your apartment for the past 3 weeks. I know one of them followed you to work last Tuesday. I know they're not cops. Her hands were shaking. She balled them into fists. Who are you? Lucian Moretti. The name hit her like cold water. Everyone in the city knew that name. You didn't grow up in the streets without hearing it whispered in alleys, muttered in bars, spoken with fear by people who knew better than to say it too loud. Lucien Moretti. The young boss who'd taken over the Moretti family 3 years ago and turned it into something leaner, sharper, more brutal than his father ever managed. The man who controlled half the city's underworld by the time he was 27. Sienna took a step back. Her legs hit the bed. You're lying. Am I? He tilted his head slightly. You can leave if you want. Door's unlocked. But those men watching your apartment? They work for Dmitry Volkov. And Dmitry doesn't pick targets randomly. I don't know anyone named... Your father did. Everything stopped. My father, she said slowly, is gone. Your father, Lucian corrected, is hiding, and he stole something that belongs to me. $7 million to be exact. Money he was supposed to launder through a construction company I owned. Instead, he disappeared with it 4 years ago. Sienna's laugh came out sharp and broken. You're insane. My father was a nobody. He worked at a warehouse. He didn't. Your father was very good at pretending to be a nobody. Lucian moved closer, not threatening exactly, but deliberate. He worked for me for 6 years, quiet, reliable. Then one day he cleaned out an offshore account and vanished. I've been looking for him ever since. Then you wasted your time grabbing me. I don't know where he is. I believe you. Then let me go. I can't do that. Why not? Lucian stopped just out of arm's reach. His gray eyes held hers, and there was something in them she couldn't name, something that made her pulse kick up for reasons that had nothing to do with fear. Because Dmitry Volkov thinks you do know where your father is, he said quietly. And when Dmitry wants information, he doesn't ask politely. He takes. And he doesn't care what's left when he's done. Sienna's throat tightened. That's not my problem. It became your problem the moment your father stole from the wrong people. Lucian's voice was steady, almost gentle. Dmitry's already made his move. The men watching your apartment? They were waiting for the right moment. Another few days and they would have taken you in the middle of the night. No witnesses, no trace. You don't know that. I know exactly that. I've seen what Dmitry does. Something flickered across his face. Memory, maybe, or anger held on a tight leash. You're alive right now because I got to you first. So what? She forced her chin up, forced herself to meet his gaze even though her hands wouldn't stop shaking. You saved me so you can use me as bait? Dangle me out there until my father shows up? No. He said it simply, firmly. I brought you here because you're safer with me than anywhere else in this city. Safe. The word tasted bitter. I'm a prisoner. You're protected. Same thing. Not even close. He turned away, moving toward the window. When he pulled the curtain back an inch, Sienna caught a glimpse of manicured grounds, high stone walls, armed men patrolling in pairs. This estate has 32 security personnel, reinforced walls, and surveillance on every entrance. Dmitri would need an army to get to you here. And when he gets his army, Lucian let the curtain fall. When he looked at her again, there was something almost like a smile on his mouth, but it didn't reach his eyes. Then he'll learn why people are afraid to say my name. The first 3 days, Sienna barely left the room. Not because Lucian locked her in. He didn't. The door was unlocked, just like he'd said. But every time she considered walking out, she remembered the men on the surveillance screens Lucian had shown her. Hard faces, dead eyes. The kind of men who hurt people for a living. She told herself she was being practical, strategic, waiting for the right moment. The truth was simpler. She was terrified. On the 4th day, someone knocked on her door. "Come in," she said, expecting Lucian. Instead, a woman entered, maybe 40, hair pulled back in a neat bun, wearing a simple gray dress. She carried a tray with food that actually smelled good, not like the reheated garbage Sienna usually ate. "Mr. Moretti thought you might be hungry," the woman said, setting the tray on the desk. "I don't want his food." "Then you'll starve." The woman's voice was matter-of-fact, not unkind. "And that won't help anyone." Sienna's stomach growled, betraying her. She hadn't eaten anything substantial since the diner, and her body was still recovering from the fever. The woman noticed. "Eat," she said. "Starving yourself to make a point is just stupid." Despite everything, Sienna almost smiled. "What's your name?" "Rosa." "How long have you worked for him?" 10 years, since he was 17. He must pay well." "He does." Rosa moved toward the door, then paused. "He's not what you think. You don't know what I think." "I know the look. Everyone gets it the first time they hear his name." Rosa's expression softened slightly. "Eat. Rest. You'll need your strength for whatever comes next." She left before Sienna could respond. The food was good. Actual vegetables, seasoned chicken, bread that wasn't stale. Sienna ate it sitting on the floor with her back against the bed, hating herself a little for every bite. But Rosa was right. Starving herself was stupid. She needed to think, plan, figure out how to get out of this without ending up dead in an alley. The problem was, she didn't have enough information. She didn't know where she was, didn't know how many guards there were, didn't know. The door opened again. No knock this time. Lucian. He'd changed clothes, dark slacks, white shirt with the sleeves rolled up. Somehow he looked more dangerous this way, more real. When he wore the suit, he was like a character from a movie. This version felt closer to whatever lived underneath. "You ate," he observed. "I was hungry." "Good." He moved into the room with that same controlled grace. "We need to talk. I have nothing to say to you, eh? Then listen." He sat on the edge of the desk, one hand resting on his thigh. "I had my people dig deeper into Dmitri's movements. He's escalating. 2 days ago, he put a $250,000 bounty on information about your father. Yesterday, he doubled it. And this morning," Lucian's jaw tightened. "This morning, he burned down your apartment building." Sienna's chest seized. "What?" "No casualties. Everyone got out. But the message is clear. He's not being subtle anymore. My things are gone. I'm sorry." She didn't have much. A few changes of clothes, some books from thrift stores, a shoebox of photos. The only pictures she had of her mother, who'd died when Sienna was 12. All of it gone now. Turned to ash because of a father who'd abandoned her and a life she'd never asked for. "Why are you telling me this?" Her voice came out flat. "Because you need to understand the situation. Dmitri won't stop. He's convinced your father will surface if you're in danger, and he's willing to burn the whole city to prove it." "My father doesn't care about me." The words tasted like truth. "He's been gone for 4 years. If he cared, he would have come back. He would have—" She cut herself off. "He's not coming." "Maybe not." Lucian's eyes stayed on her face. "But Dmitri thinks differently, which means you're still in his crosshairs. So what do you want from me?" "I want you to stay here. Stay safe. Let me handle Dmitri." "And what do I owe you for this generous protection?" Something shifted in his expression. "Nothing." Bullshit. She stood up, hands clenched at her sides. Nobody does something for nothing, especially not people like you. People like me. Criminals. Killers. Whatever pretty words you use to dress it up. He was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was softer, almost contemplative. You're not wrong. I've done terrible things. I'll do more before this is over, but you... He stood, closing some of the distance between them. You're not part of that. You didn't choose this life. You shouldn't pay for your father's mistakes. That's not how the world works. It's how my world works. Your world, she laughed, bitter. Your world put a price on my head. No, your father did that. His voice hardened. I'm trying to keep you alive. Why? She threw the question at him like a weapon. Why do you care? He held her gaze for 3 heartbeats. 4. Then he turned toward the door. Get some rest, Sienna. Tomorrow I'll show you the security setup. You should know what's protecting you. He left before she could press harder. Sienna stood there in the too quiet room, in clothes that weren't hers, in a life that felt like someone else's nightmare. And she realized, with a cold curl of certainty in her gut, that Lucian Moretti was lying. Not about Dimitri, not about the danger, but about why he'd saved her. Nobody built walls this high, hired guards this expensive, brought a stranger into their home just because it was the right thing to do. Men like Lucian didn't operate on morality. They operated on leverage, on power, on getting what they wanted, which meant he wanted something from her. She just had to figure out what. The estate was bigger than Sienna had imagined. Lucian gave her the tour the next morning, walking her through hallways lined with art that probably cost more than she'd make in a lifetime, past rooms furnished with the kind of casual wealth that felt obscene. Staff members moved through the space like ghosts, there but not there, eyes down, efficient. 32 security personnel, Lucian said as they walked. Rotating shifts, armed at all times. No one gets in or out without clearance. Sounds like a prison. Sounds like survival. He led her to a room on the 2nd floor, smaller than the one she'd been staying in, but still larger than her entire apartment had been. Computer monitors lined one wall, showing feeds from dozens of cameras positioned around the property. A man sat at the desk, mid-30s, built like a boxer. He glanced up when they entered, his eyes flicking to Sienna with open curiosity. Marco, Lucian said. This is Sienna. She'll have access to this room if she wants it. Marco's eyebrows rose. Boss, not a discussion. Yes, sir. Marco's expression smoothed into neutrality, but Sienna caught the surprise underneath. Lucian gestured to the screens. Every camera, every angle. You want to see what's happening out there, you come here. Why would I want that? Because you're smart enough not to trust blind faith. He wasn't wrong. Sienna moved closer to the monitors, studying them. The front gate, the perimeter wall, the gardens. Men in dark clothes patrolling in pairs, hands near holstered weapons. What if I want to leave? She asked. Then you tell me, and I'll assign a security detail. That's not leaving. That's being escorted. It's being alive. Lucian's tone didn't change. Your choice. Sienna turned away from the screens. You keep saying that. My choice. But nothing about this is my choice. You're not in a cell. You're not restrained. You can walk through every room in this house. You can eat what you want, go where you want, as long as I stay inside your cage. Yes. He didn't flinch from it. Because outside this cage, Dimitri is waiting, and I guarantee you won't like his hospitality. At least he'd be honest about what he wants. Something dark flickered through Lucian's eyes. You think I'm dishonest? I think you're not telling me everything. He smiled then, brief, sharp. Smart girl. Don't patronize me. I'm not. He stepped closer, and Sienna hated that her body tensed, hated that some animal part of her brain registered him as dangerous, even when he hadn't threatened her. You want honesty? Fine. You're here because your father made me look weak. He stole from me, disappeared, and for 4 years people have been whispering that Lucian Moretti couldn't even protect his own money. That's a problem. So this is about your reputation, partly. But it's also about what happens when people think you're weak in this business. They test you, they push, they take. And I can't let that stand. So you grabbed me to prove a point. I grabbed you to keep you alive, he corrected. But yes, having you here also sends a message. It tells Dmitri and everyone else watching that I'm the one in control. Finally, truth that tasted like it. So I'm a chess piece. You're under my protection. There's a difference. Is there? He studied her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he turned to Marco. She has full access to this room. If she asks questions, answer them. Marco nodded, still looking slightly shell-shocked. Lucien left without another word. Sienna stood there, surrounded by monitors showing a world she couldn't reach, and felt the cage close tighter. She started testing the boundaries immediately. First, the doors. Every room she tried opened. No locks, no restrictions. She could go anywhere inside the house. The kitchen, the library, the sitting rooms filled with furniture too expensive to touch. But she couldn't leave. Every exit led to grounds patrolled by armed men who watched her with flat, professional eyes. She'd tried walking toward the gate once. 2 guards materialized from nowhere, polite but immovable. Mr. Moretti would prefer you stay inside, miss. Translation, don't try it. The library became her refuge. 3 stories of books, most of them old and leather-bound and probably worth more than she'd ever seen in her life. She pulled down novels at random, curled up in a chair by the window, and tried to lose herself in someone else's problems. It didn't work. Every time she started to forget where she was, reality crashed back. The sound of footsteps in the hall. The distant murmur of guards communicating through radios. The weight of Lucien's gaze when he appeared in doorways, watching her with that same unreadable intensity. He didn't push, didn't force conversations, but he was always there, hovering at the edges of her awareness like a shadow she couldn't escape. On the 7th day, she broke. She found him in his office, a room she'd avoided until now, some instinct warning her it was too personal, too deep into his world. But she was going crazy in the silence, and she needed answers. She knocked once, didn't wait for permission, and pushed the door open. Lucien sat behind a massive desk, papers spread in front of him. He looked up, one eyebrow rising. Problem? I can't do this, she said. Do what? Sit here. Wait. Pretend this is normal. He leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled. What would you prefer? I want information. Real information. Not whatever carefully edited version you've been feeding me. I haven't lied to you. But you haven't told me everything either. She moved into the room, stopping in front of his desk. You said my father stole $7 million. Why? What was he planning to do with it? I don't know. Bullshit. It's the truth. Lucien's voice stayed level. If I knew, I would have found him by now. Then tell me about Dmitri. Why does he care about money my father stole from you? That's your problem, not his. Lucien was quiet for a moment. Then he stood, moving around the desk with that predatory grace. Your father didn't just steal from me, he said. The money he took was meant to pay Dmitri for a shipment. Weapons, primarily. When the payment never arrived, Dmitri assumed I was trying to cheat him. He retaliated, burned one of my warehouses, killed 3 of my men. Sienna's stomach dropped. My father got people killed. Yes. And now Dmitri thinks I can lead him to the money. Or to your father, who can lead him to the money. Either way, you're the trail he's following. She sank into the chair across from his desk, legs suddenly unsteady. I really don't know where he is. I believe you. Then what happens? We just... What? Sit here forever while Dmitri burns the city down looking for me? No. Lucien moved back to his side of the desk, but didn't sit. We find your father first. How? I have people looking. It's only a matter of time. And then what? You kill him? He didn't answer immediately. When he did, his voice was carefully neutral. That depends on what he does when we find him. He's still my father. He's still a thief who got people killed and put you in danger. Lucien's eyes hardened. Don't romanticize him, Sienna. Whatever he was to you before he left, that's not who he is now. You don't know that. I know he hasn't contacted you in 4 years. I know he left you to struggle alone while he disappeared with $7 million. I know he had to realize Dmitri would come looking, and he did it anyway. Lucien's voice dropped. A man who cared about you wouldn't have done that. The words hit like a fist, not because they were cruel, because they were true. Her father had left without a word. No note, no explanation. Just gone one day, like she'd never mattered at all. And in the years since, she'd built up this fragile hope that maybe he'd had a reason. Maybe he'd been protecting her. Maybe he still thought about her sometimes. But the truth was simpler and meaner. He'd saved himself and left her behind. "I need air," she said, standing abruptly. "Sienna, don't." She held up a hand. "Just don't." She left before he could say anything else, before the burning in her throat turned into something worse. That night, she couldn't sleep. She lay in the too-soft bed staring at the ceiling and tried not to think about everything she'd lost. Her apartment, her job, the small, hard-won life she'd built from nothing. All gone now. Around midnight, she gave up. She pulled on the robe someone had left in the closet, silk, of course, because apparently Lucian didn't believe in normal fabric, and padded out into the hallway. The house was quieter at night, but not silent. She heard voices from somewhere below, footsteps on marble, the distant hum of electronics. This place never truly slept. She wandered without direction, following hallways she hadn't explored yet. The art on the walls watched her with painted eyes. Sculptures loomed in shadowed alcoves. Everything was beautiful and cold and expensive. Eventually, she found herself in front of a set of double doors slightly ajar. Light spilled through the gap. She should have turned around, should have gone back to her room. Instead, she pushed the door open. It was a study, smaller than Lucian's office, more personal. Bookshelves lined the walls, but these books looked read, not displayed. A fireplace held low flames, and at a small table near the window, Lucian sat with a glass of whiskey and a file spread in front of him. He looked up when she entered, no surprise on his face, like he'd been expecting her. "Can't sleep?" he asked. "Apparently not. Join me." He gestured to the chair across from him. She should have said no, should have kept her distance. But she was tired of being alone with her thoughts, so she crossed the room and sat. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The fire crackled. Somewhere in the house, a clock chimed once. "What are you reading?" she finally asked. Lucian glanced at the file. "Updates on Dimitri's movements. Anything useful?" "He's getting desperate, sloppy." He closed the file. "That makes him more dangerous." "How long before he tries something here?" "Hard to say. Could be days. Could be weeks." Lucian picked up his glass, studied the amber liquid. "But he'll try eventually. Men like Dimitri don't know when to quit. Men like you either, apparently." He smiled, brief and genuine. "Fair point." Sienna leaned back in the chair, pulling her knees up. "Can I ask you something?" "You can ask." "Why did you really bring me here? And don't give me that line about protection. I'm not stupid." Lucian set his glass down. His eyes found hers across the small table, and there was something in them she hadn't seen before. Something almost like honesty. "You want the truth?" "Yes." "I brought you here because the alternative was unacceptable." "That's not an answer. It's the only one I have right now." He leaned forward slightly. "I don't expect you to trust me, Sienna. I don't expect you to like this situation, but I need you to believe one thing. As long as you're under my roof, nothing will touch you. That's not negotiable." There was weight in those words. Weight and something else, something that felt almost like a promise made to himself rather than to her. "You barely know me," she said quietly. "I know enough." "Like what?" He held her gaze. "I know you work 2 shifts most days because one isn't enough to cover rent. I know you donate blood every 8 weeks for the $40 because you need the money that badly. I know you walked home in a fever because you couldn't afford the bus. And I know," his voice softened, "I know you've been fighting alone for a long time." Sienna's throat tightened. "How long have you been watching me?" "Long enough." "That's creepy." "Probably." He didn't look away. "But I don't regret it." "Why?" The question hung between them. Lucian was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then he picked up his glass, drained it, and stood. "Get some sleep, Sienna. We have a lot to deal with tomorrow." He left her sitting there, surrounded by firelight and questions that didn't have answers yet. And Sienna realized something that made her pulse kick up and her skin feel too tight. Lucian Moretti was afraid of something. Not Dimitri, not the violence or the war brewing outside his walls. He was afraid of whatever answer he'd almost given her. The next morning brought rain again, hammering against the windows like it had something to prove. Sienna woke to the sound of it and lay still for a moment, staring at the ceiling, trying to remember where she was. Then it all came rushing back. She dragged herself out of bed and into the bathroom. Marble and gold fixtures. The kind of luxury that should have felt good, but just made her feel displaced. She splashed cold water on her face and studied her reflection. Dark circles under her eyes. Hair a mess. She looked like someone who'd been running for a long time and just realized she had nowhere left to go. When she emerged, dressed in clothes someone had left in the closet, jeans that fit too well, a sweater that was too soft. Rosa was in the room, setting down a breakfast tray. "You don't have to do that," Sienna said. "I know." Rosa straightened, hands on her hips. "But if I leave it up to you, you won't eat, and then Mr. Moretti will give me that look like I've personally failed him." "He does that?" "You have no idea." Rosa headed for the door, then paused. "He wants to see you in his office when you're ready." "What if I'm not ready?" "Then he'll wait, but he doesn't wait well." Sienna almost smiled despite everything. "Thanks, Rosa." The older woman's expression softened slightly. "Eat first. Whatever he wants to discuss, you'll handle it better on a full stomach." She ate quickly. Eggs, toast, fruit that tasted like it had never seen the inside of a grocery store. Then she made her way through the quiet hallways to Lucian's office, her pulse picking up with each step. She knocked once, heard his voice telling her to come in. He was standing by the window when she entered, phone pressed to his ear, speaking in rapid Italian. He glanced at her, held up one finger, continued the conversation. Sienna caught fragments, something about shipments, timelines, someone named Vittorio, who apparently couldn't follow simple instructions. Then he switched to English mid-sentence. "I don't care what excuse he has. If it's not done by Friday, he's out, permanently." He ended the call and turned to face her fully. He'd shaved, changed into another expensive suit, this one, charcoal gray that made his eyes look even more pale. He looked tired, though, lines around his mouth that hadn't been there yesterday. "Problem?" she asked. "Always." He gestured to the chair across from his desk. "Sit." She did, watching as he moved to his side of the desk but didn't sit himself. Instead, he leaned against it, arms crossed. "I got word this morning," he said. "Dimitri's moving faster than I expected. He hit one of my supply lines last night, took out a truck, killed the driver." Sienna's stomach dropped. "Because of me?" "Because of your father. But yes, he's escalating because he thinks it'll force my hand." Lucian's jaw tightened. "He's making this personal." "So what do we do?" "We find your father before Dimitri does." "I told you, I don't know where—" "I know, but we have a lead." He picked up a folder from his desk, handed it to her. "One of my contacts traced a bank transaction from 3 months ago. Small amount, withdrawn from an account your father opened years ago. The account's been dormant until now." Sienna opened the folder with shaking hands. Inside was a printed statement showing a withdrawal of $500 from a bank in a town she'd never heard of, Bridgewater, about 4 hours north. "This could be anyone," she said. "Could be, but the timing's interesting. 3 months ago is right when Dimitri started asking questions again, right when the pressure increased." Lucian's eyes stayed on her face. "If your father's been watching, he might have gotten nervous, pulled some cash to move again. Or it's completely unrelated." "Maybe, but it's the only thread we have." Sienna stared at the paper. $500. Such a small amount compared to $7 million. But if it really was her father— "What do you want me to do?" she asked quietly. "Come with me to Bridgewater tomorrow. We'll check the bank, talk to people, see if anyone recognizes him from a photo. And if they do, then we follow the trail." Lucian pushed off from the desk, moved closer. "I know this isn't easy, but if we find him first, we have leverage. We can negotiate with Dimitri, end this without more bloodshed." "You mean without more of your people getting killed?" "Yes, that too. At least he was honest about it." Sienna closed the folder. "If we find him, when we find him, what happens?" "That depends on him." "Will you kill him?" Lucian was quiet for a beat too long. "I don't know yet." "That's not reassuring. It's the truth." He crouched down so they were eye level, his gaze intense. "I won't lie to you, Sienna. Your father made choices that got people hurt. If he cooperates, if he helps us end this, then maybe we can work something out. But if he runs again, if he puts more people in danger, he didn't finish the sentence. Didn't need to. He's still my father, she said, hating how weak it sounded. I know, and I'll try to remember that when the time comes. It wasn't a promise, but it was something. Fine, she said. I'll go, but I want something in return. His eyebrow rose. Go on. If we find him, I want to talk to him first, alone, before you make any decisions. That's not safe. I don't care. If I'm helping you hunt down my own father, then I get that much. Lucian studied her for a long moment. Then he stood, offered his hand. Deal. She took it. His palm was warm, calloused in places that suggested he'd done more than sign papers in his life. The handshake lasted a second too long, and when she pulled away, her skin felt hot where he'd touched her. We leave at dawn, he said. Pack light. We'll be gone 2 days, maybe 3. Will it be safe? Something almost like a smile crossed his face. You're with me. That's as safe as it gets. She wanted to argue, wanted to point out that being with him was exactly what put her in danger in the first place. But the truth was, she didn't have a better option. So she just nodded and left him standing there, already turning back to his phone, already moving on to the next crisis. Sienna spent the rest of the day in a strange limbo, half packing a bag she didn't own with clothes that weren't hers, trying not to think too hard about what tomorrow might bring. Rosa appeared at some point with more suitable clothes, sturdy boots, a jacket that looked weatherproof, things that suggested Lucian had thought this through. He thinks of everything, Sienna muttered, holding up the jacket. Usually, Rosa agreed. She hesitated, then added, He's not as bad as you think. You keep saying that. Because it's true. You think he's a monster. Maybe he is. But monsters don't lose sleep over keeping people safe. How do you know he loses sleep? Rosa's smile was sad. Because I've worked here long enough to see the light under his door at 3 a.m. She left before Sienna could ask what that meant. That night, dinner was different. Instead of eating alone in her room like she had every night since arriving, Sienna found herself summoned, politely, but summoned nonetheless, to a smaller dining room she hadn't seen before. Intimate. A table set for 2. Candles burning even though the overhead lights worked fine. Lucian was already there, tie loosened, jacket gone. He looked almost human this way, almost approachable. This feels like a setup, Sienna said from the doorway. It's dinner. Sit. You're very bossy. It's been mentioned. She sat across from him, hyper-aware of how small the table was, how close his hands were to hers. Staff appeared with food, actual courses, not just a plate. Soup. Salad. Something with fish that smelled incredible. You didn't have to do this, she said. I wanted to. He picked up his wine glass, swirled it once. Tomorrow's going to be difficult. I thought we could use a normal evening first. Nothing about this is normal. Fair point. They ate in silence for a few minutes. The food was good, better than good, but Sienna could barely taste it. Her mind kept jumping ahead to tomorrow, to what they might find, to what her father might say if they actually found him. What was he like? Lucian asked suddenly. She looked up. Who? Your father. Before he left. Sienna set down her fork. Why do you want to know? Curiosity. He worked for me for 6 years and I barely knew him. That was by design. He kept his head down, did his job, didn't make waves, but you lived with him. You knew the version of him he didn't show anyone else. She thought about lying, thought about saying something generic and meaningless, but the wine had loosened something in her chest, and the words came out before she could stop them. He was quiet, tired. He worked long hours, or I thought he did. Now I guess I know what he was really doing. She picked up her own glass, took a sip that was more like a gulp. But when he was home, he tried. He'd ask about school, help with homework. After my mom died, he didn't fall apart like I thought he would. He just kept going, kept taking care of me. Until he didn't. Yeah, the word tasted bitter. Until he didn't. Lucian was quiet, watching her with that intense focus that made her feel seen in a way she wasn't sure she liked. You're angry at him, he observed. Of course I'm angry. He left me with nothing. No explanation, no money, no way to understand what the hell happened. Just gone. She drained her glass. And now I find out he wasn't even who I thought he was. The whole time he was lying, stealing, putting us both in danger. You had no idea what he was doing? None. I thought he worked at a warehouse. I thought we were broke because that's all there was. I didn't know he was sitting on $7 million while I skipped meals to make rent. Lucian refilled her glass without asking. If we find him tomorrow, what will you say to him? I don't know. She met his eyes across the table. What would you say to someone who destroyed your life and then disappeared? I'd ask why. And if the answer wasn't good enough, then I'd make sure they understood the consequences. The words should have sounded threatening. Instead, they just sounded tired. You ever lose someone? Sienna asked. Something flickered across his face. There and gone so fast she almost missed it. Yes. Who? My brother. He said it quietly, like the words hurt coming out. Younger. He was 18 when he died, caught in crossfire during a territorial dispute. I'm sorry. Don't be. It was 10 years ago. But his voice said it might as well have been yesterday. He wasn't supposed to be there. I told him to stay home, but he thought he could help, thought he was ready for this life. Lucian's jaw worked. He was wrong. That's not your fault, isn't it? I'm the one who brought him into this world. I'm the one who didn't protect him well enough. Sienna understood suddenly why Lucian had built these walls so high, why he kept everyone at gunpoint distance, why he needed control like other people needed air. Is that why you grabbed me off the street? She asked softly. Because you couldn't save him? Lucian's eyes locked on hers. For a moment she thought he wouldn't answer. Then he leaned back in his chair, one hand rubbing his jaw. Maybe. I don't know. All I know is when I saw you on those cameras, burning up with fever, about to collapse, He stopped. Started again. I couldn't leave you there. Even though I'm leverage against my father. Even though. The air between them felt heavy, weighted with things neither of them was saying. This is a bad idea, Sienna said. What is? This. Us having dinner, you telling me things, me starting to think maybe you're not completely terrible. I am completely terrible. But he was almost smiling. I've done things that would make you run if you knew the details. Then why are you being nice to me? Because you deserve better than what you've been given. He said it simply, like it was obvious. And because I'm selfish enough to want you to stop looking at me like I'm the devil. I don't. You do, and you're not wrong, but I'm asking anyway. Sienna didn't know what to say to that. Didn't know how to process this version of Lucian, the one who admitted weakness, who showed cracks in his armor. So she just reached for her glass and tried to ignore the way her hand was shaking. They finished dinner making careful small talk about nothing important, the weather, the house, books she'd found in the library, safe topics that didn't require honesty. When the meal ended and she stood to leave, Lucian walked her to the door. Get some rest, he said. We have a long drive tomorrow. You're really coming yourself. Don't you have people for this? I have people for a lot of things. This isn't one of them. Why not? He looked at her for a long moment. Because if we find your father, I want to be there when you talk to him. I want to see the man who walked away from you. And then? Then I'll decide if he lives or dies. The words should have terrified her. Instead, they just felt inevitable. Good night, Lucian. Good night, Sienna. She walked away feeling his eyes on her back, feeling the weight of tomorrow pressing down like a physical thing. Dawn came too fast. Sienna was already awake when Rosa knocked, already dressed in the practical clothes that had appeared in her closet. She grabbed the small bag she'd packed and headed downstairs, where Lucian was waiting in the entrance hall. He looked like he hadn't slept. Same clothes as last night, hair slightly mussed, but his eyes were sharp, focused. Ready? He asked. As I'll ever be. They walked out to a car that wasn't the sleek black luxury sedan from before. This one was darker, more anonymous, bulletproof glass and reinforced panels that probably meant it could take a hit and keep going. Two other vehicles idled nearby, filled with men in dark clothes. Security detail, Lucian explained, seeing her look. They'll keep their distance, but they'll be there. You really think Dmitri will try something? I think Dmitri's desperate. Desperate men do stupid things. They climbed into the back seat. The driver, a massive guy named Carlo, who looked like he ate nails for breakfast, pulled out without a word. The other vehicles fell in behind them. For the first hour, neither Sienna nor Lucian spoke. She watched the city give way to suburbs, then to stretches of highway bordered by trees just starting to show autumn colors. The world looked normal out here, peaceful, like people weren't hunting her, like she hadn't been pulled into a war she didn't understand. "You should sleep," Lucian said eventually. "We've got 3 more hours." "Can't." "Nervous?" "Wouldn't you be?" He considered that. "Yes, but I'd try not to show it. Must be exhausting, keeping up that mask all the time." "You have no idea." She turned to look at him. He was staring out his own window, jaw tight, one hand drumming a restless pattern on his thigh. "What happens if we don't find him?" she asked. "We keep looking. And if Dmitri finds him first? Then things get messy." He glanced at her. "But that's not going to happen. You can't know that. I can know that I'll do everything in my power to make sure it doesn't." His voice dropped. "I don't break promises, Sienna. I said I'd keep you safe. That includes keeping your father alive long enough for you to get answers." "Why do you care about that?" "Because you care about it." The simplicity of the answer nearly undid her. She turned back to the window before he could see her face, before he could read whatever was written there. They stopped once, at a rest area where Carlo grabbed coffee and Lucian made calls that sounded tense, even in Italian. Sienna stayed in the car, watching the other vehicles parked nearby, wondering if any of them were a threat. "You're paranoid," she muttered to herself. But after 2 weeks of living in Lucian's world, maybe paranoia was just smart. They got back on the road. The landscape grew more rural. Small towns with single stoplights. Farms. Woods that pressed close to the road. Finally, just after noon, they pulled into Bridgewater. It was tiny. Main street with maybe a dozen businesses. One bank, old brick building with narrow windows. People moved slowly here, looked at strangers with open curiosity. "This is going to be subtle," Sienna said. "We're not trying to be subtle." Lucian was already out of the car, straightening his jacket. "We're trying to get information. Sometimes direct is better." They walked into the bank together. The security detail stayed outside, trying and failing to look casual. Inside, it was quiet. Just a few customers, 2 tellers, a manager visible through a glass office door. Lucian approached the manager's office, knocked once, walked in without waiting for permission. The manager, a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and graying hair, looked up, startled. "Can I help you?" "I hope so." Lucian pulled out a photo, set it on her desk. Sienna recognized her father's face, 10 years younger, smiling in a way she'd almost forgotten. "Have you seen this man?" The manager studied the photo, frowned. "I'm not sure I should. This man stole from me. A significant amount. I'm trying to locate him, and I have reason to believe he's been using your bank." Lucian's voice was calm, reasonable. "I'm not asking you to break any laws. Just tell me if you recognize him." The woman hesitated, looked from the photo to Lucian to Sienna. "Who are you?" she asked Sienna. "His daughter." Something in the manager's expression shifted. She looked at the photo again, longer this time. "He's been here," she finally said. 3, maybe 4 times in the past year. Always withdraws cash, never much, few hundred each time. Sienna's heart kicked up. When was the last time? Maybe 6 weeks ago? Did he say anything? Give any indication where he was staying? No, he was polite, quiet, kept to himself. The manager pushed the photo back across the desk. "That's all I can tell you." "Did he seem nervous?" Lucian asked. "Like he was watching for something?" "Now that you mention it, yes. He kept looking at the door like he expected someone to walk in." Lucian and Sienna exchanged glances. "Is there anything else?" the manager asked. "Because if not, I really should." "One more thing." Lucian pulled out his wallet, extracted several $100 bills. "If he comes back, I need you to call this number." He wrote on the back of one of his cards, placed it on the desk with the money. "Don't approach him. Don't tell him anyone's looking. Just call." The manager stared at the money, at the card. Then she nodded slowly. "All right." Outside, Sienna exhaled hard. "He's here. Or he was. Recently." "He's close," Lucian agreed. "Carlo, start checking motels, rental properties, anywhere someone could stay under the radar. Show the photo. Be discreet." "How discreet can we be in a town this size?" Carlo asked. Do your best. They spent the next 3 hours canvassing Bridgewater. Sienna watched Lucian work, smooth, efficient, knowing exactly what questions to ask, what details mattered. He wasn't threatening. He didn't need to be. Something about his presence made people want to cooperate. At the fourth motel, they caught a break. The clerk, a kid barely 20, working the desk with obvious boredom, recognized the photo immediately. Yeah, that guy. Room 12. Been here about 3 months. Sienna's breath stopped. Is he here now? Lucian asked. Dunno, haven't seen him today, but his truck's in the lot. Lucian passed the kid $200. You didn't see us. See who? They walked back to the car. Sienna's hands were shaking so badly she had to clasp them together. He's here, she whispered. He's actually here. Looks like it. Lucian pulled out his phone, sent a quick text. Security's taking positions around the motel. We're going in. Now? No point waiting. If he's spooked, he'll run. What if he's not there? Then we wait. They drove to the motel, a rundown place with peeling paint and cars that had seen better days. Room 12 was on the end, curtains drawn. A beat-up Ford truck sat in front. Lucian parked 3 spaces away. The security detail materialized from nowhere, taking positions that covered all the exits. Stay behind me, Lucian said to Sienna. This was the deal. I talked to him first. After I make sure it's safe. Lucian, not negotiable. He was out of the car before she could argue further. She followed, pulse hammering in her ears. Lucian approached the door, knocked, waited. Nothing. He knocked again, harder. Mr. Vale? I know you're in there. I just want to talk. Silence. Then, from inside, who are you? Her father's voice. Older, rougher, but unmistakable. Sienna's knees nearly gave out. Lucian glanced at her, something like sympathy in his eyes. Then he turned back to the door. My name is Lucian Moretti, and I have someone here who needs to see you. More silence. Then the sound of a chain sliding, a lock turning. The door opened. And there he was. 4 years older, thinner, gray in his hair that hadn't been there before. But the same eyes, the same hands, the same man who'd raised her and then abandoned her without explanation. His gaze went straight past Lucian to Sienna, and something broke in his expression, something that might have been relief or guilt or horror. Sienna, he breathed. Oh, no, you can't be here. You have to... I need to talk to you, she cut him off. Her voice was steady, even though nothing else was. Now. Her father's eyes moved back to Lucian, recognition dawning. Moretti. I know that name. Oh, you should. You stole from me. Lucian's voice was flat. But right now, your daughter wants answers, so you're going to invite us in, and you're going to talk. Understood? For a moment, Sienna thought her father might refuse, might slam the door or try to run or do something stupid. Instead, he just stepped aside, defeated. Come in. The motel room was exactly what Sienna expected. Cheap furniture, stained carpet, the smell of old cigarettes and desperation. Her father moved like a man who'd forgotten how to stand up straight, shoulders hunched, eyes darting between her and Lucian like he couldn't decide which one scared him more. Lucian closed the door behind them. Didn't lock it. Just stood there with his back to it, arms crossed, watching. Sit down, Dad, Sienna said. Her voice came out harder than she intended. He sat on the edge of the bed. She took the single chair by the window. Lucian stayed where he was, a wall between them, an escape. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Her father's hands twisted together in his lap. He'd aged badly, deep lines around his mouth, hollows under his eyes. He looked like a man who hadn't slept well in years. I'm sorry, he finally said. I'm so sorry, Sienna. I never wanted you to be part of this. Then why am I? The words came out sharp. Why are people watching my apartment? Why did someone burn down my building? Why is a man named Dmitry Volkov trying to kill me to get to you? Her father's face went white. Dmitry's after you? You didn't think he would be? I thought... He stopped, started again. I thought if I disappeared completely, if I stayed hidden, he'd leave you alone. You weren't involved. You didn't know anything. That didn't stop him. Sienna leaned forward. Tell me what you did. All of it. No more lies. Her father looked at Lucian. Does he need to be here? Yes, Sienna and Lucian said at the same time. Her father's jaw worked. Then he sighed, defeated. I worked for the Moretti family for 6 years. Bookkeeping, mostly. Moving money through legitimate businesses, so it looked clean. I was good at it. Too good, maybe. He rubbed his face. About 5 years ago, Mr. Moretti, Lucian's father, he asked me to handle a bigger job. 7 million that needed to disappear and then reappear as payment for some deal with Dmitry Volkov. Weapons, Lucian said quietly. The deal was for weapons. I didn't ask questions. That was the rule. Do the work. Keep your head down. Don't get curious. Her father's hands were shaking now. But then your mother got sick. Really sick. The cancer came back and the insurance wouldn't cover the treatment she needed. We were drowning in medical bills. I was working for criminals and still couldn't afford to save my own wife. Sienna's chest tightened. She remembered those last months. Her mother getting thinner, weaker. The collection notices piling up. Her father coming home later and later, looking more hollow each time. So you stole the money, she said. I was going to borrow it, just enough for her treatment. I thought I could move it around, make it look like the transaction went through, buy myself time to pay it back. He looked at her with desperate eyes. I was trying to save her, Sienna. I wasn't thinking clearly. I couldn't lose her. But you did anyway. The words landed like a slap. Her father flinched. The treatment didn't work. By the time we realized it wasn't going to save her, I'd already taken the money. And I couldn't put it back without getting caught. The old man, Lucian's father, he would have killed me. Slowly. He swallowed hard. So I ran. I took what was left and I disappeared. And left me behind. Sienna's voice cracked. You left me alone with nothing. I thought they'd leave you alone if I was gone. You thought wrong. Lucian's voice cut through the room like a blade. The moment you stole from me, you put a target on everyone connected to you, your daughter included. I know that now. Her father stood up, hands raised like he was surrendering. I know I made a mistake, a lot of mistakes, but I never wanted Sienna hurt. Never. Then why didn't you contact me? Sienna demanded. 4 years. 4 years of nothing, not a call, not a letter, nothing. I thought you were dead. I hoped you were dead because that was better than thinking you just didn't care. I did care. I do care. He took a step toward her. Lucian moved slightly, a subtle shift that said, go easy. Her father stopped. Every day I wanted to call. Every day I thought about coming back. But I couldn't. If I contacted you, they might trace it. If I came back, they'd find me, and then they'd use you against me. So instead, you let me think I was completely alone. I thought it was safer. It wasn't. The words came out raw. Do you have any idea what the last 4 years have been like? Working 2 jobs just to afford a shithole apartment, going hungry so I could pay rent, getting sick because I couldn't afford a doctor, and the whole time wondering what I did wrong, what made you leave without even saying goodbye. Sienna, don't. She stood up, fists clenched. Don't try to make this okay. Don't try to tell me you were protecting me. You were protecting yourself. That's not fair. None of this is fair. Her voice rose. Mom died, and you ran away with blood money, and I got left behind to clean up the mess. So don't talk to me about fair. Her father's face crumpled. For a second, he looked like he might cry, and part of Sienna wanted him to. Wanted him to hurt the way she'd been hurting, but the tears didn't come. He just stood there, broken and small, nothing like the father she remembered. Where's the money? Lucian asked into the silence. Her father turned to him. Gone. Most of it. I've been moving every few months, paying cash for everything, staying off the grid. That's expensive. How much is left? Maybe $500,000, hidden in accounts under different names. That's not enough to pay Dmitry what he's owed. I know. Then you're going to have to give him something else. Lucian pushed off from the door, moving into the room properly. Information, leverage, something that makes you worth more alive than dead. Her father laughed, bitter. I don't have anything like that. Then we're all in trouble. Lucian pulled out his phone, checked something, put it away. Because Dmitry's not going to stop. He's escalating, burning buildings, killing my people, putting pressure everywhere he can. It's only a matter of time before he finds you. Let him find me, as long as Sienna's safe. She's not safe. That's the problem. Lucian's voice went hard. Dmitry thinks she knows where you are, thinks she's useful. And even after we find you, even after this is resolved, he might still come for her just to make a point. The room went very quiet. What are you saying? Her father asked. I'm saying there's only one way to guarantee Sienna's safety. We end Dmitri, permanently. You're talking about killing him. I'm talking about survival. Her father shook his head. You can't just kill someone like Dmitri Volkov. He's got an army. He's got connections. So do I. Lucian's smile was cold. The difference is, I'm better at using them. This is insane. This is necessary. Lucian looked at Sienna. Unless you have a better idea. She didn't. That was the worst part. She didn't have any ideas at all. Her father was a coward and a thief. Dmitri wanted her dead, and Lucian was the only thing standing between her and a shallow grave. I want to talk to my father, she said quietly. Alone. Lucian's jaw tightened. Sienna, you said I could. That was the deal. He studied her face for a long moment. Then he nodded once, sharp. 5 minutes. I'll be right outside. He looked at her father. If you upset her, if you try to leave, if you do anything stupid, you won't like what happens next. Her father just nodded, pale. Lucian left. The door clicked shut behind him. Sienna waited until she heard his footsteps move away. Then she turned to her father. Is it true? She asked. About Mom. About trying to save her? Every word. But the rest, running, hiding, leaving me behind, that was just cowardice. He didn't deny it. Yes. Do you even care that I almost died? That Lucian found me collapsed on the street with a fever because I couldn't afford to miss work? Of course I care. His voice broke. I think about you every day. Wonder if you're okay, if you're eating enough, if you're... He stopped. I know I don't have the right to wonder. I know I gave that up when I left. You could have sent money, anonymously, something to help. I was afraid it would lead them to you. Everything you did led them to me anyway. Sienna sat back down, suddenly exhausted. I want to hate you. It would be easier if I could just hate you. I know. But you're still my dad, and I keep thinking about what you said, about Mom, about being desperate, and I wonder if maybe I would have done the same thing. You wouldn't have. You're stronger than me. I'm not strong. I'm just stubborn. She looked at him, really looked, saw the guilt etched into every line of his face. Are you going to help us? Help you do what? Whatever Lucian needs to end this, to make me safe. Her father was quiet for a long time. Then he nodded slowly. If that's what it takes. It might mean facing Dmitri. It might mean... She couldn't finish the sentence. I know what it might mean. He moved closer, sat on the edge of the coffee table across from her. I've been running for 4 years. I'm tired, Sienna. Tired of hiding, tired of looking over my shoulder. If there's a chance to make this right, to make you safe, then I'll take it. Even if it kills you? Especially then. At least it would mean something. Sienna felt something loosen in her chest. Not forgiveness. It was too soon for that, might always be too soon. But maybe understanding. Maybe a glimpse of the man he'd been before fear broke him. Okay, she said softly. Okay? We'll figure this out. Together. Her father's eyes went bright. He reached for her hand. She let him take it. I'm sorry, he whispered. For all of it. I know. The door opened. Lucian stood there, face unreadable. We need to move, he said. My security picked up chatter. Dimitri's people are in the area. The fragile moment shattered. Her father stood up fast. How close? Close enough. We're leaving now. They were in the car 3 minutes later, her father crammed in beside Sienna, Carlo driving like the road was on fire. The other security vehicles flanked them, weapons visible now, all pretense of subtlety gone. How did they find us? Sienna asked. Could be anything. Someone talked, someone saw something, or Dmitri got lucky. Lucian was on his phone, speaking rapid Italian. Doesn't matter, we're ahead of them. For now, her father muttered, for now is all we need. They made it to the highway before the shooting started. It came from nowhere, a black SUV pulling alongside them, windows dropping, muzzle flashes bright in the afternoon sun. Bullets punched into the car's armored side with sounds like hammers on steel. Sienna screamed. Her father pulled her down. Lucian stayed upright, phone still pressed to his ear, voice still calm. Carlo, evasive. Marco, take out that vehicle. One of the security cars swung around, positioning itself between them and the shooters. More gunfire, glass breaking. Then an explosion loud enough to make Sienna's ears ring. Go, 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 Lucian said. Carlo floored it. The car surged forward, engine roaring. Behind them, more shooting, more chaos. Sienna couldn't see what was happening, pressed against the seat with her father's arm around her. It's okay, he kept saying. It's okay. It's okay. But it wasn't okay. Nothing about this was okay. The shooting faded. They kept driving, fast enough that the world outside became a blur. Sienna risked sitting up, looked back through the rear window. Two of their vehicles were still following. The third was gone. What happened to Marco? She asked. Lucian's face was stone. He bought us time. Is he? Yes. One word, final, dead. This is my fault, her father said, voice hollow. Another person dead because of me. No. Lucian turned to look at him. This is Dimitri's fault, and he's going to pay for it. They drove for another 2 hours, switching highways, doubling back, taking routes that made no sense. Finally, as the sun started to set, they pulled up to a house Sienna had never seen before. Not as big as Lucian's estate, but still large, still expensive looking, gates and walls and guards already in position. Safe house, Lucian explained as they got out. Only a few people know about it. We'll regroup here. Inside was all modern furniture and neutral colors. Impersonal. A place designed for hiding, not living. Sienna's legs felt shaky. Her father looked worse, gray and sick, like he might pass out. Lucian caught her looking. Get him settled, he told one of the guards. Upstairs, second room on the left. I should stay with Sienna, her father protested weakly. You should rest before you have a heart attack. Lucian's tone left no room for argument. Go. Her father went, led away by the guard. Sienna watched him disappear up the stairs. He's not going to make it through this, she said quietly. Probably not. Lucian moved toward what looked like a study off the main room. But that's not our biggest problem right now. What is? He pulled out a laptop, started typing. Dimitri knows where we were, which means he either followed us from the estate or he's got someone on my payroll feeding him information. You have a traitor? Maybe. Or maybe he got lucky. Either way, we can't risk going back to the estate until I figure out which. So we're stuck here. We're protected here. He didn't look up from the laptop. There's a difference. Sienna sank into one of the couches. Her whole body hurt. Her head throbbed. She wanted to close her eyes and wake up in her old life. Poor, tired, but uncomplicated. Hey, Lucian's voice was softer. She looked up. He'd moved closer, was standing a few feet away. You did good today. I didn't do anything. You confronted your father, got answers, convinced him to help. That takes strength. I don't feel strong. You wouldn't. Strong people never do. He hesitated, then sat beside her on the couch, close enough that she could feel the heat of him. This is almost over, Sienna. A few more days and you'll be free of all this. You can't promise that. Watch me. The confidence in his voice should have been arrogant. Instead, it just felt solid. Real. Why are you doing this? She asked. Really, not the speeches about protection or making things right. The real reason. Lucian was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then he turned to face her, and something in his expression made her breath catch. Because from the moment I saw you on those security feeds, I couldn't stop thinking about you, couldn't stop watching. I told myself it was about your father, about the money, about strategy, but that was a lie. His voice dropped. The truth is, I wanted you safe because the alternative, the thought of Dimitri or anyone else hurting you, it made me want to burn the entire city down. Sienna's pulse kicked up. That's not... You barely know me. I know enough. I know you work yourself sick trying to survive. I know you're angry at your father, but you still love him. I know you're terrified right now, but you're not running. He shifted closer. I know you're the first person in years who's looked at me and seen something other than a monster. I do think you're a monster, she whispered. I know, but you're still here. They were too close. She could see the gray of his eyes, the faint scar on his jaw. the way his mouth was set in a line that might have been restraint. "This is a bad idea," she said. "I know that too." We shouldn't, he agreed, but neither of them moved away. The air between them felt charged, dangerous. Sienna's heart was racing. Every instinct screamed that this was wrong, that getting close to Lucian was the worst possible choice. But she was so tired of being alone, so tired of being afraid. And in this moment, with him looking at her like she was something precious instead of something useful, she wanted to be reckless. "Lucian!" The alarm shattered the moment. High-pitched, urgent, echoing through the house. Lucian was on his feet instantly, hand already reaching for the gun she hadn't realized he was carrying. "Stay here," he ordered. "What's happening?" Someone breached the perimeter. He was gone before she could respond, moving with lethal purpose toward the front of the house. Sienna heard shouting, rapid footsteps, the distinctive sound of weapons being readied. She should have stayed on the couch like he said, should have hidden, played it safe. Instead, she ran upstairs to find her father. He was already out of the room, wild-eyed, when she reached the second floor. "We have to go," he said, grabbing her arm. "We have to get out of here." Lucian said, "Lucian's going to get us killed. Come on." He pulled her toward the back stairs. Sienna resisted. "We can't just run. There are guards. There's—" Gunfire erupted from somewhere below. Close. Too close. Her father's face went white. "They're inside." More gunfire. Shouting. The sounds of violence echoing through the house. "Come on." Her father's grip tightened. "Now." They ran down the back stairs, feet pounding on hardwood. Sienna's mind was racing. How did they get in so fast? How did they... They reached the ground floor, a side door leading to what looked like a garden. Her father yanked it open. 3 men stood outside, armed, waiting. Sienna's stomach dropped. "No," her father breathed. The lead man smiled. "Mr. Vale, we've been looking for you." He raised his weapon. Everything happened at once. Her father shoved Sienna behind him. The men moved forward. Then Lucian appeared from nowhere, gun up, face carved from ice. "Down!" he barked. Sienna dropped. Her father did too. Lucian fired 3 times, precise and controlled. The 3 men went down, blood spraying, bodies crumpling. Silence. Then Lucian was there, hauling Sienna to her feet, his hands rough but not cruel. "I told you to stay put. They were inside. We had to... You had to trust me." His eyes blazed. "This house has a safe room. That's where you should have gone." "How was I supposed to know that?" "Because I would have told you if you'd stayed where I put you." More footsteps. Lucian spun, gun up. But it was just his security detail, weapons drawn, covered in blood and cordite. "Perimeter's clear," one of them reported. 5 hostiles, all down. "Casualties?" 2 injured. Nobody dead. Lucian nodded once. "Sweep the property again. Make sure there's no one else." They moved out. Lucian turned back to Sienna and her father. "Safe room, now. Not a discussion." This time, they followed. The safe room was in the basement, reinforced walls, steel door, monitors showing feeds from every camera on the property. Lucian ushered them inside, then started to leave. "Where are you going?" Sienna asked. "To make sure we're actually secure." "What if they come back?" "They won't." His voice was flat, certain. "But if they do, this room will hold until I get back." He left. The steel door closed with a heavy thunk. Sienna and her father were alone in the humming silence. "That was too close," her father said, slumping against the wall. "Way too close." "How did they find us so fast?" "I don't know. But they're not going to stop." He looked at her with frightened eyes. "Sienna, maybe you should go. Get as far away from me as possible. Change your name, disappear. I'm not running." "You should. This isn't your fight. It became my fight the moment you stole that money." She sat down on the floor, legs crossed. "And I'm not leaving you to face this alone. Not again." Her father stared at her. Then he sat beside her, shoulders sagging. "You're braver than I ever was." "I'm not brave, I'm just stubborn." "Your mother would be proud." Sienna's throat tightened. "Don't." "She would. You've survived things she never had to face, and you're still here, still fighting." "Because I don't have a choice." "There's always a choice. You're choosing to stay." He reached over, squeezed her hand. "Thank you." They sat in silence, surrounded by monitors showing an empty property, waiting for Lucian to come back and tell them what happened next. Sienna stared at the screens and tried not to think about how close she'd come to dying. Tried not to think about the sound of gunfire, the smell of blood, the look on Lucian's face when he'd killed those men. Tried not to think about what he'd said before the alarm went off, but it was all she could think about. 40 minutes later, the door opened. Lucian stood there, jacket gone, shirt stained with something dark, hair disheveled. He looked exhausted. "It's clear," he said. "They're gone." "For now," her father muttered. "For now." Lucian's eyes found Sienna's. "We need to talk, all of us, about what comes next." They gathered in the study. Sienna, her father, Lucian, and two of his most trusted men whose names she hadn't learned yet. The room smelled like gun smoke and tension. Outside, through the windows, she could see guards patrolling with weapons drawn, sweeping flashlight beams across the grounds. Lucian poured himself 3 fingers of whiskey, drank half in one swallow, then turned to face them. "We can't keep doing this," he said. "Running, reacting, waiting for Dimitri to make the next move. It's not sustainable." "So what do you suggest?" her father asked. He looked smaller somehow, hunched in his chair like the weight of everything was finally crushing him. "We go on offense, force his hand." "That's suicide. Staying defensive is suicide." Lucian set his glass down hard enough to make everyone flinch. "He found us at the motel. Found us here. He's getting information from somewhere, which means someone close to me is feeding him intel, or he's got resources I underestimated. Either way, we're bleeding out slowly." "What kind of offense?" Sienna asked. Lucian's eyes met hers. "We give him what he wants." Her father stood up fast. "No, absolutely not. I'm not letting you use my daughter as bait." "I wasn't talking about Sienna." Lucian's voice was cold. "I was talking about you." The room went silent. "You want to hand me over to Dimitri," her father said slowly. "Just like that." "Not hand you over. Offer a meeting. You, me, Dimitri. Neutral ground. We negotiate." "Dimitri doesn't negotiate. He takes." "Then we make sure we have leverage he can't ignore." Lucian pulled out his phone, pulled up something, turned it toward her father. "You said you had $500,000 left. Where is it?" Her father's face went pale. "That's my insurance. My way out if everything goes to hell." "Everything's already gone to hell. The money's worthless if you're dead." "And you think giving it to Dimitri will make him just walk away?" "No. But it might buy us enough goodwill to get him in a room where we can actually talk." Lucian pocketed the phone. "Right now he thinks you're a coward who stole from him and disappeared. Show up willing to make amends, offer real compensation, act like a man instead of a rat. It changes the dynamic. It puts a target on my chest. The target's already there. This just brings it into the open, where we can deal with it." Sienna watched them argue, her stomach twisting. Part of her wanted to scream at Lucian, tell him he was insane for even suggesting this. But another part, the part that had survived 4 years alone, the part that was tired of being hunted, understood the logic. You couldn't run forever. Eventually you had to turn and face the thing chasing you. "What about Sienna?" her father asked. "If I meet with Dimitri, what happens to her?" "She stays here, protected. Dimitri gets you, not her." "And if he wants both?" "Then he doesn't get the meeting." Lucian's voice went hard. "That's non-negotiable. You for peace, or nothing at all." Her father sank back into his chair. His hands were shaking. For a long moment he just sat there, staring at nothing. "Dad," Sienna said softly. He looked at her. There were tears in his eyes. "I can't lose you too," he whispered. "You won't. Lucian will keep me safe." "You trust him?" Did she? A week ago, the answer would have been no. Yesterday, maybe. But now, after watching him kill men to protect her, after seeing the way he looked at her like she mattered more than his pride or his reputation, "Yes," she said, "I trust him." Her father studied her face. Then he turned to Lucian. "If anything happens to her, it won't. But if it does, if you fail, if she gets hurt because of this," his voice cracked, "I'll kill you myself. I don't care who you are or how many men you have. I'll find a way." Lucian's expression didn't change. Fair enough. They spent the next hour hammering out details. Lucian made calls, speaking in Italian and English and what might have been Russian, Pulling strings Sienna didn't understand. Her father paced, smoking cigarettes he'd bummed off one of the guards, even though his hands shook so badly he could barely light them. Sienna just sat and watched and tried not to think about all the ways this could go wrong. Finally, around midnight, Lucian ended his last call and turned to them. It's set. Tomorrow night. Warehouse District, South Side. Neutral territory. Doesn't belong to me or Dmitri, which means neither of us has home advantage. He agreed to meet? Her father asked. He agreed to listen. That's as good as we're getting. What about security? I bring 5 men. He brings 5. You and I go in, everyone else stays outside unless shooting starts. And if shooting starts? Lucian's smile was cold. Then we make sure we shoot better. Her father nodded slowly, looked at Sienna. I need to talk to my daughter. Alone. Lucian hesitated, then gestured to his men. They filed out. He followed, pausing at the door. 10 minutes, he said to Sienna. Then you need to rest. He left before she could respond. Her father moved to the couch, sat heavily. Sienna joined him, close enough that their shoulders touched. I don't know if I can do this, he said quietly. You can. How do you know? Because you have to. She took his hand. Because if you don't, Dmitri wins, and I don't get to have a father anymore. You barely have one now. But I do have one, and I want to keep him. Her voice caught. Even if he's a coward who ran away, even if he made mistakes, he's still my dad. Her father's shoulders shook. He pulled her close, pressed his face against her hair like he used to when she was little. I'm sorry, he whispered, for everything. For your mom, for leaving, for dragging you into this nightmare. I'm so sorry. I know. If I don't make it tomorrow, don't. If I don't, he continued, I need you to know I love you. I always have. Every day I was gone, I thought about you, worried about you, hated myself for not being there. Then be there now. She pulled back to look at him. Be brave tomorrow, for me, for Mom, for the man you used to be before everything went wrong. He nodded, wiping his eyes. Okay. I'll try. They sat together in the quiet, holding on to each other like they were the only solid things in a world that wouldn't stop shaking. When Lucian came back, he found them like that. He didn't say anything, just waited until her father stood and left with one of the guards. Then Sienna and Lucian were alone. You should sleep, he said. I can't. Try anyway. Tomorrow's going to be hard enough without you being exhausted. You're not sleeping either. I don't sleep much these days. Why not? He moved to the window, stared out at the dark grounds. Because every time I close my eyes, I see things I'd rather forget. Like what? Like my brother bleeding out in my arms. Like the first man I killed. Like every mistake I've made that got someone hurt. He turned to look at her. Like what almost happened to you today. That wasn't your fault, wasn't it? I'm the one who brought you into this. If I just left you alone, let Dmitri take his shot, he would have tortured me for information I don't have, then killed me. Sienna stood, moved closer. You saved my life, Lucian. More than once. For selfish reasons. Maybe. But you still did it. They were too close again. Like in the moments before the alarm had gone off. Her heart was racing, blood rushing in her ears. This is still a bad idea, she said. I know. We shouldn't, he agreed. But this time, neither of them pulled away. Lucian's hand came up, fingers brushing her cheek. His touch was gentle, hesitant, like he was afraid she'd break. Tell me to stop, he said quietly. I can't. Why not? Because I don't want you to. Something broke in his expression. Then his mouth was on hers, hungry and desperate, and she was kissing him back like her life depended on it. It wasn't gentle, wasn't soft or romantic or any of the things kisses were supposed to be. It was raw and messy and tasted like whiskey and need. His hands tangled in her hair, hers fisted in his shirt. They stumbled backward until her spine hit the wall, and he pressed against her, all hard muscle and barely controlled violence. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Sienna's lips felt bruised. That was a mistake, she gasped. Probably. He rested his forehead against hers. Do you want to stop? No. Good. Neither do I. He kissed her again, slower this time, but no less intense. His hands mapped her body like he was trying to memorize every curve, every line. She let herself get lost in the feeling of being wanted by someone who looked at her and saw her, not leverage or a pawn or something useful, just her. When they broke apart again, she was trembling. "We should stop," she whispered. "We should. Before this gets complicated." "It's already complicated." His thumb traced her swollen bottom lip. "Has been since the moment I saw you. What do you want from me, Lucian?" "Everything." He said it simply, honestly. "I want everything you'll give me. And I know I don't deserve it. I know I'm the last person you should trust. But I'm asking anyway." Sienna's chest felt tight. This was insane. He was a criminal, a killer, a man who'd built an empire on blood and fear. But he was also the only person in years who'd made her feel like she mattered. "I can't promise anything," she said. "Not until this is over. Not until I know my father's safe. I'm not asking for promises." He stepped back, putting distance between them. "I'm just asking you to consider that maybe us, maybe it's not as crazy as it sounds. It's definitely crazy. But I'll consider it." His smile was small, genuine. "That's all I need." He walked her to her room, a bedroom on the second floor with locks on the inside and guards posted outside. When she started to close the door, he stopped her with a hand on the frame. "Sienna." "Yeah?" "No matter what happens tomorrow, you stay here. You don't leave this house. Promise me." "Lucian, promise me." His eyes were intense, desperate. "I can't do what needs to be done if I'm worried about you." "Fine. I promise. Thank you." He left. The door clicked shut. Sienna stood there for a long time, fingers pressed to her lips, trying to make sense of what had just happened. Then she climbed into bed and stared at the ceiling until exhaustion finally dragged her under. She woke to morning light and the sound of movement downstairs. For a moment she just lay there, disoriented, trying to remember where she was. Then it all came rushing back. The kiss, the promise. The fact that tonight her father was walking into a meeting that could get him killed. She forced herself out of bed, showered fast, dressed in jeans and a shirt someone had left folded on the chair. When she went downstairs, she found the house in organized chaos. Men everywhere, checking weapons, speaking into radios, moving with purpose. Lucian stood in the middle of it all, giving orders in 3 languages, his face a mask of cold focus. He looked like a different person, not the man who'd kissed her last night. Not the man who'd admitted he wanted everything from her. This was the Mafia boss. The killer. The man people feared. Her father sat at the kitchen table nursing coffee with shaking hands. He looked like he hadn't slept at all. Sienna went to him, put a hand on his shoulder. "Hey." "Hey yourself." His smile was weak. "Big day." "You don't have to do this." "Yes, I do. We could run, all of us. Get out of the country, disappear, and spend the rest of our lives looking over our shoulders? No." He set down his coffee. "I'm done running, Sienna. Whatever happens tonight, at least I faced it." "What if Dimitri kills you?" "Then at least you'll be safe." "That's not..." Her voice broke. "That's not good enough." "It's the best I can offer." Lucian appeared in the doorway. "It's time. We need to leave early, scout the location, set up security." Her father stood, looked at Sienna. "I love you, kid. Remember that. Don't talk like you're not coming back." "I'm not, but just in case." He hugged her hard enough to hurt. She clung to him, memorizing the feel of his arms around her, the smell of his aftershave, the sound of his heartbeat. When he pulled away, his eyes were wet. "Be good," he said. Then he was gone, following Lucian out the door. Sienna stood in the empty kitchen, hands clenched at her sides, fighting the urge to run after them. Rosa appeared from somewhere, put a gentle hand on her arm. "Come on," she said softly. "Let's get you some food. You'll feel better." "I won't." "No, but you'll eat anyway." Sienna let herself be led to the table, let Rosa put food in front of her that she couldn't taste. She sat there for an hour, picking at breakfast, watching the clock tick toward evening. Around noon, one of the guards brought her a laptop. "Mr. Moretti said you might want this, to keep occupied." She took it, opened it, stared at the blank screen. Keeping occupied was the last thing she wanted. What she wanted was to be there, to see what happened, to make sure her father walked away alive. But she'd promised Lucian she'd stay. So she sat and waited and tried not to think about all the ways tonight could end badly. The hours crawled. Afternoon bled into evening. The house grew quieter as more men left to take positions around the warehouse. By 6 o'clock, Sienna was alone except for 2 guards stationed by the doors, and Rosa moving through the house like a worried ghost. At 7, her phone buzzed. A text from Lucian. Just 2 words. "We're in." Sienna's stomach dropped. She typed back fast. "Be careful." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. "Always." Then nothing. She put the phone down with shaking hands and forced herself to breathe. 8 o'clock came. 9. No word. At 9:30, the front door burst open. Sienna jumped up, heart in her throat. One of Lucian's men stumbled in, blood on his shirt, face pale. "We need backup," he gasped. "Now, there—" Gunfire erupted from outside. Close. Too close. Sienna's world tilted. This wasn't supposed to happen. Lucian said the meeting was across town, said she'd be safe here, said the windows exploded inward. Glass rained down. Someone screamed. Sienna dropped to the floor, hands over her head, mind blank with terror. More gunfire. Shouting in multiple languages, the sound of bodies hitting the ground. Then silence. Footsteps. Heavy, deliberate. Sienna looked up. A man stood in the doorway, tall, broad, with pale eyes and a smile that made her skin crawl. "Hello, Miss Vale," he said in accented English. "I'm Dmitri Volkov, and you're coming with me." She tried to run, tried to fight, but hands grabbed her, lifted her, dragged her toward the door. "No!" she screamed. "No, let me go, let me—" Something hit the side of her head. The world went dark. When Sienna woke, everything hurt. Her head throbbed. Her wrists burned. She realized they were zip-tied behind her back. She was moving, bouncing, the rumble of an engine beneath her. She forced her eyes open. She was in the back of a van, lying on cold metal. 2 men sat nearby, weapons across their laps, talking in Russian. Panic clawed up her throat. She fought it down, forced herself to think. Lucian said she'd be safe. He promised, which meant something had gone wrong. Very wrong. Either the meeting was a trap, or Dmitri had split his forces, sent some men to the warehouse while others hit the safe house. Either way, she was screwed. The van slowed, stopped. The back doors opened. Rough hands dragged her out. She stumbled, nearly fell, caught herself. They were at another warehouse. This one darker, older, rust bleeding down the metal walls. 3 cars parked outside. More armed men, and standing in the center of it all, calm as death, was Dmitri Volkov. Up close, he was worse than she'd imagined. Not because he looked cruel, he didn't. He looked ordinary, pleasant even, like a businessman or a teacher, but his eyes were empty. Looking into them was like looking into nothing at all. "Bring her inside," he said mildly. They dragged her through a door into a space that smelled like oil and old blood. Metal chains hung from the ceiling, stains on the concrete that she didn't want to think about. Her father knelt in the center of the room, hands bound, face bruised and swollen, and beside him, also on his knees, bleeding from a cut above his eye, Lucian. Sienna's heart stopped. No, this wasn't possible. Lucian was supposed to be in control, supposed to have the upper hand, supposed to— Good, Dmitri said pleasantly. "Everyone's here. Now we can begin." Sienna's legs nearly gave out. Only the hands gripping her arms kept her upright as she stared at the 2 men kneeling on the concrete floor. Her father looked broken, his face a mess of bruises and blood. But it was Lucian who made her stomach drop. Lucian, who was supposed to be untouchable, who'd promised he'd keep them safe, now on his knees with a gun pressed to the back of his head. "Sienna," her father's voice cracked. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." "Touching," Dmitri said, circling them slowly. "Family reunions always make me sentimental. But we're not here for sentiment, are we?" He stopped in front of Sienna, studying her face with those dead eyes. "We're here because your father is a thief, and thieves must pay their debts." "I told you," her father said desperately. "I told you I have money, $500,000. It's yours. Just let them go. 500,000, Dmitri smiled. When you stole 7, that's quite a discount you're offering. It's all I have left. Because you spent the rest hiding like a rat while I burned buildings and killed men trying to find you. Dmitri's pleasant tone never wavered. Do you know how much money I lost because of you? How much reputation? The Moretti family was supposed to pay me for a shipment. When the payment never came, I looked weak. People started thinking they could cheat me too. That's not my problem, her father said, then immediately flinched like he knew it was the wrong thing to say. Dmitri's expression didn't change. Actually, it is. Because you made it my problem, and now I'm making it yours. He gestured to one of his men, who moved behind her father. The sound of a gun cocking echoed in the warehouse. No! Sienna lunged forward, the hands holding her tightened, yanking her back. Don't, please. He's trying to make this right. By offering me scraps? Dmitri turned to her. Tell me, Miss Vale, if someone stole from you, destroyed your life, cost you millions, would you accept 30% and call it even? I don't care about the money. Just let him live. But I do care about the money. And more importantly, I care about respect. He moved closer, close enough that she could smell his cologne. People need to know what happens when they cross me. Otherwise, I'm just another weak old man pretending to be dangerous. You're not old, she said, because her brain was short-circuiting, and that's what came out. Dmitri actually laughed. True. I'm 43, prime of my life. His smile faded. But in this business, weakness is death, and your father made me look weak. So this is about your ego. The words came out before Sienna could stop them. You're going to kill 3 people because your feelings got hurt. The man holding the gun to Lucian's head shifted. Lucian's eyes found hers across the space, gray and intense, and trying to tell her something she couldn't understand. My feelings. Dmitri considered that. I suppose you could put it that way. Or you could say I'm protecting my business interests, maintaining order, ensuring future compliance. He shrugged. Call it what you want. The result is the same. Then kill me. Her father's voice was steady now, resigned. Let them go and kill me. I'm the one who stole from you. Dad, no. I'm the one who deserves this, he continued. Sienna didn't do anything. Moretti was just trying to clean up my mess. They're innocent. Nobody here is innocent, Dmitri said. But I appreciate the sacrifice. Very noble. He pulled out a gun, checked the chamber casually. Unfortunately, I need more than nobility. I need my money. All of it. I don't have it. Then we have a problem. Dmitri pointed the gun at Sienna's father. Because if I can't get my money, I'll settle for making an example. Starting with you, then your daughter, then Mr. Moretti, who should have handled this years ago instead of letting a nobody accountant make fools of us both. Wait, Lucian's voice cut through the warehouse. I can get you the money. Everyone turned to look at him. Dmitri's eyebrow rose. Can you now? The original 7 million, plus interest for your trouble. Lucian's face was calm despite the blood running down his temple. Give me 48 hours. You're in no position to negotiate. I'm in the perfect position. You want money. I have money. Kill us, and you get nothing but satisfaction. Let us walk, and you get paid. Why would you pay Vale's debt? Because this war is expensive. I've lost men, property, time. Paying you 7 million ends it clean. We go back to business as usual. You get whole. I get peace. Everyone wins. Dmitri studied him for a long moment. Except I don't trust you. Then keep the girl as insurance. Sienna's heart stopped. No, her father said immediately. No, you can't. Shut up. Lucian didn't look at him, his eyes locked on Dmitri. Keep her here. I go get the money. If I don't come back in 48 hours, you kill her, but I will come back. You have my word. Your word means nothing to me. Then how about this? You kill her, you lose any chance of getting paid. You kill me, same thing. But let me go get the money. And in 2 days, you're 7 million richer, and this whole thing is over. Dmitri was quiet, turning it over. His gun still pointed at her father. Interesting proposal, but I think I'll keep both of them. You bring the money, trade it for their lives. That's the deal. Take it, or I shoot everyone right now and at least get the satisfaction. Lucian's jaw worked. Then he nodded once. Fine. No. Sienna found her voice. Don't pay for my father's mistakes. Don't. Be quiet, Sienna. Lucian's tone was hard, final. This is how it has to be. But I said be quiet. Dmitri smiled. See? Even your attack dog knows when to heel. He gestured to his men. Put them in the back room, both of them. Mr. Moretti, you have until Saturday midnight. Show up with the money, you get them back. Show up without it. He shrugged. Well, you're smart enough to imagine. They dragged Sienna and her father toward a door at the back of the warehouse. She twisted, trying to see Lucian, but he was already being hauled to his feet, shoved toward the exit. Lucian, she screamed. He didn't look back. The back room was small and cold and smelled like rust. They threw Sienna and her father inside, cut the zip ties from their wrists, then slammed the door. The lock clicked. Darkness. Complete and suffocating. Sienna's hands found the wall, felt along it until she found her father. He was sitting on the floor, breathing hard. You okay? She asked. Define okay. His laugh was broken. I'm alive, for now. That's about the best I can say. She slid down beside him, shoulder to shoulder. Her wrists burned where the plastic had cut into skin. Her head throbbed. But none of that mattered compared to the crushing weight in her chest. This is my fault, her father said into the darkness. All of it. If I hadn't stolen that money, if I just let your mother go peacefully instead of trying to play hero, don't. Sienna's voice was sharp. Don't do that. You made a mistake, a big one. But you were trying to save Mom. That has to count for something. Does it? Because from where I'm sitting, it just looks like cowardice dressed up as love. Maybe it was. Maybe he was right. But Sienna was too tired to sort through the morality of it, too tired to decide if desperation justified theft, if love excused running away. What do you think Lucian will do? She asked instead. Pay. If he can get the money together that fast. Her father shifted, and she heard him wince. That's a lot of cash to move in 48 hours. He said he could do it. He also said we'd be safe at the house. Look how that turned out. That's not fair. Dmitri outplayed him. Did he? Or did Lucian underestimate how far Dmitri would go? Her father's voice was bitter. Either way, we're here, locked in a room, waiting to see if we're worth $7 million to a man who's known you for 2 weeks. The words hit harder than they should have, because he was right, wasn't he? What was she to Lucian? A complication, a girl he'd saved because it served his purposes. Maybe he'd kissed her last night, maybe he'd said pretty words about wanting everything, but when it came down to it, would he really trade $7 million and his pride for someone he barely knew? He'll come, she said, trying to sound confident. How do you know? Because he promised. Her father was quiet for a moment. Then he said, very gently, men like Lucian Moretti make a lot of promises. Doesn't mean they keep them. Sienna wanted to argue, wanted to defend Lucian, explain that he was different, that he'd shown her pieces of himself no one else saw. But sitting in the dark, locked in a room that might become her tomb, she couldn't find the words. Time became meaningless. No windows, no clock, nothing but darkness and the sound of their breathing. Sienna dozed fitfully, woke with her heart racing, dozed again. Her father didn't sleep at all that she could tell. He just sat there, occasionally muttering apologies she didn't have the energy to respond to. Eventually, hours later, maybe a day, the door opened. Light flooded in, blinding. Sienna threw up a hand to shield her eyes. 2 of Dmitri's men stood in the doorway. You, one said, pointing at Sienna. Come. Where are you taking her? Her father demanded. Boss wants to talk to her. I'm not going anywhere without... The man pulled his gun. You're not in a position to negotiate. Her father grabbed Sienna's arm. Don't go with them. I don't think I have a choice, Dad. Sienna, it's okay. She squeezed his hand. I'll be okay. She didn't believe it, but saying it out loud made it feel more possible. They pulled her out of the room, down a hallway she hadn't seen before, into what looked like an office. Dmitri sat behind a desk, reading something on his phone. He looked up when she entered, gestured to a chair. Sit. She sat. The men left, closing the door behind them. Dmitri set his phone down, folded his hands. How are you feeling? Like I've been kidnapped and locked in a room for a day. So, not great. Understandable. He leaned back. I wanted to talk to you. Woman to woman, so to speak. You're not a woman. No, but I'm a reasonable person, and I think you are too. Where's this going? Straight to the point. I like that. Dmitri smiled. Here's what's going to happen. Lucian will show up tomorrow night with the money. He'll trade it for you and your father. Everyone walks away. That sounds too simple. It is, because there's a complication. He pulled out a different phone, showed her the screen. It was a photo of Lucian, talking to several men in expensive suits. Your friend has been busy, calling in favors, moving assets, liquidating investments. 7 million in 2 days. It's impressive. Shows how much he values you. So I'm wondering if maybe I underpriced this situation. Dmitri pocketed the phone. Your father stole 7 million, but Lucian's willing to pay that to get you back, which suggests you're worth more than the original debt. Sienna's stomach dropped. You're going to ask for more money. I'm going to ask for 14 million, double the original amount. He'll never pay that, won't he? Dmitri tilted his head. He moved heaven and earth to get 7 together in 48 hours. What's another 7 when it's your life on the line? This is insane. You had a deal. I had a deal with a desperate man who would have agreed to anything. Now I have leverage. Dmitri's smile was pleasant, deadly. Don't take it personally, Miss Vale. This is just business. Extortion is business? In my world? Yes. And Lucian knows that. He'll complain, he'll threaten, but ultimately he'll pay, because the alternative is watching you die. And I don't think he can live with that. You don't know him. I know men like him. They'll sacrifice anything, money, pride, power, for the one thing they can't afford to lose. Dmitri leaned forward. You're that thing, Miss Vale. Congratulations. You've become valuable. Sienna's hands were shaking. She pressed them flat against her thighs, forced herself to breathe. What if he doesn't pay? Then your father dies first, slowly, while you watch. And then you die, also slowly. Dmitri said it like he was discussing dinner plans. But I don't think it'll come to that. Lucian's smarter than your father. He knows when he's beaten. You're a monster. I'm a businessman. There's a difference. He stood, moved to the door. Take her back. Make sure she's comfortable. Tomorrow's going to be a big day. They dragged her back to the room, shoved her inside. Her father caught her as she stumbled. What did he want? He's changing the deal. Wants 14 million now instead of 7. Her father went pale. Lucian won't pay that. I know. Then we're dead. I know that too. They sank down together against the wall. Her father put his arm around her shoulders, pulled her close like he used to when she was little and had nightmares. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm so sorry I brought you into this. It's not your fault. It is. All of it. I should have let your mother go. Let nature take its course instead of trying to play hero with someone else's money. You loved her. I did. I do. But love doesn't justify this. Doesn't justify stealing, running, getting you killed. His voice broke. She would have hated this. Hated seeing you here because of my choices. Sienna thought about her mother, about the woman who'd raised her to be strong, to fight, to never give up even when everything seemed hopeless. Her mother who'd smiled through the pain, who'd held Sienna's hand and told her everything would be okay, even when it obviously wouldn't. Mom would have understood, Sienna said quietly. She would have done the same thing in your position. You think? I know. Because that's who she was. Someone who fought for the people she loved, even when the fight was pointless. Her father's shoulders shook. He pressed his face against her hair, and she felt hot tears on her scalp. They stayed like that for a long time, holding each other in the dark, waiting for whatever came next. The next day crawled by in agonizing slowness. No food, no water, just darkness and fear and the sound of men moving around outside their prison. Finally, as evening approached, or what Sienna guessed was evening, it was impossible to tell, the door opened again. Time's up, one of Dmitri's men said. Let's go. They were hauled out into the main warehouse space. Floodlights had been set up, turning the space into a brutal stage. Dmitri stood in the center, flanked by at least a dozen armed men, and walking through the far entrance, surrounded by his own security detail, Lucian. He looked like he'd been through hell. His suit was rumpled, his face drawn with exhaustion. But his eyes, His eyes were sharp and focused and burning with something dangerous. "Moretti!" Dmitri called out pleasantly. "Right on time. Did you bring what I asked for?" "I brought 7 million, as agreed." "Ah, see, that's where we have a small problem." Dmitri gestured, and two of his men dragged forward a large metal case. "I've decided the price has gone up, 14 million. Half in the case you brought, half in a wire transfer within the hour." Lucian stopped walking. "That wasn't the deal." "The deal changed. You're a businessman. You understand flexibility." "I understand theft when I see it." "Then you'll understand why I'm insisting." Dmitri pulled his gun, pressed it to Siena's temple. "Pay, or I paint the floor with her brain. Your choice." Siena's breath stopped. The metal was cold against her skin. She could feel Dmitri's finger on the trigger, could feel how close she was to nothing. Lucian's face went completely blank. Then, very carefully, he smiled. "You made a mistake," he said quietly. "Did I?" "You assumed I came here to negotiate." Lucian raised his hand, made a gesture. The lights went out. Chaos erupted. Gunfire filled the darkness. Muzzle flashes like lightning, screams and shouts, and the sound of bodies hitting concrete. Sienna felt Dmitri's gun leave her temple, felt hands grabbing her, dragging her down. "Stay down!" a voice hissed in her ear. One of Lucian's men. More gunfire, closer now. Someone screamed. Something heavy crashed to the floor. Then, as suddenly as it started, silence. The lights came back on. Dmitri's men were down. All of them. Dead or incapacitated, scattered across the warehouse floor like broken dolls. Lucian's security detail stood over them, weapons raised, ready. And in the center of it all, Lucian held Dmitri on his knees, gun pressed to the back of his head. "You were saying?" Lucian's voice was conversational. "Something about painting the floor?" Dmitri's pleasant mask was gone. His face was twisted with rage and fear. "You bastard! You planned this! Of course I planned this!" "You think I'd walk in here defenseless?" Lucian pressed the gun harder. "The case I brought? Empty. The money? Never existed. This was always going to end one way. You'll start a war. The war already started. You started it when you came after what's mine." Lucian's eyes found Sienna across the space. She was being helped up by one of his men, her father beside her, both of them shaking but alive. "And I'm ending it. If you kill me, my organization will hunt you forever. Your organization is rudderless and fractured. Half your lieutenants are already negotiating with me to take over. The other half will be dead by morning." Lucian's smile was cold. "You made this personal, Dmitri. You went after an innocent girl to get to me. That was your mistake. She's not innocent. None of you are. Maybe not. But she didn't deserve what you put her through. And for that," Lucian's voice dropped. "For that, you die." The gunshot was deafening. Dmitri's body slumped forward, blood spreading across the concrete. Silence fell again. Heavier this time. Final. Lucian holstered his weapon, turned to Sienna. "Are you hurt?" She couldn't speak, could only shake her head. "Your father?" "Alive," her father croaked. "Bruised, but alive." Lucian nodded once. Then he was moving, crossing the space to Sienna, pulling her into his arms. She collapsed against him, hands fisting in his jacket, breathing in the smell of gun smoke and blood and him. "I've got you," he murmured against her hair. "You're safe now. I've got you." "You came," she whispered. "Did you think I wouldn't?" "I didn't know. He wanted 14 million, and I thought I would have paid it." He pulled back just enough to look at her face. "I would have paid anything, but I don't negotiate with men who threaten what's mine." "Yours." The word should have annoyed her, should have made her pull away. Instead, it just felt right. "If you'll have me," he said quietly. She kissed him instead of answering, hard and desperate and tasting like blood and relief. He kissed her back like she was oxygen, like he'd been drowning and she was air. When they broke apart, her father was watching them with an expression Sienna couldn't read. "We should go," one of Lucian's men said. "Police will be here soon." "Right." Lucian kept one arm around Sienna, turned to her father. "Can you walk?" "Barely, but yes." They made it to the cars waiting outside. The night was cool and clear, stars visible overhead. Sienna couldn't remember the last time she'd seen stars. As they drove away from the warehouse, from the blood and bodies and nightmare, she leaned against Lucian's shoulder and let herself breathe. 3 weeks later, Sienna stood in the library of Lucian's estate, coffee in hand, watching morning light filter through the windows. Outside, the grounds looked peaceful, beautiful, like violence had never touched this place. Her father had left a week ago. They'd had a long conversation first, one of those messy, painful talks where nothing got fully resolved, but at least everything got said. He'd apologized again, she'd cried again. They'd agreed he'd get help, real help, and maybe someday they could figure out how to be father and daughter again. But not yet. Right now she needed space, needed time to process everything that had happened. Lucian found her there, leaning against the windowsill. He slid an arm around her waist, kissed her temple. Morning. Morning. She turned in his arms, studied his face. He looked better now, the exhaustion gone, the hardness in his eyes softened. Did you sleep? Some. You? Some. They'd been doing this dance for 3 weeks now, living in the same house, sharing the same space, but moving carefully around each other like they were both afraid one wrong word would break whatever this was between them. We need to talk, Lucian said. Her stomach dropped. That sounds ominous. It's not. He took a breath. I need to know what you want, from this, from me. Because I know what I want, but I can't assume you want the same thing. What do you want? You, here, with me. Not as a guest or someone I'm protecting, as, he struggled with the words, as my partner. Someone who stays because she wants to, not because she has nowhere else to go. Sienna's chest felt tight. I don't know if I'm ready for that. I know, and I'm not pushing, but I needed you to know where I stand. She thought about it. Thought about everything that had brought her here. The fever, the fear, the warehouse, the blood. Thought about her father's mistakes and her mother's death and 4 years of barely surviving alone. And she thought about Lucian, about the way he'd killed for her, paid for her, protected her even when it cost him, about the way he looked at her like she mattered more than his empire. I'm not easy to love, she said quietly. I'm angry and stubborn, and I don't trust easily. I know. And you're a criminal. You kill people. You run an organization built on violence and fear. I know that too. But, she met his eyes, but you make me feel safe. And after everything, that's not nothing. His smile was small, genuine. So what does that mean? It means I'll stay, for now, and we'll figure out the rest as we go. Good enough for me. He kissed her then, slow and sweet, and Sienna let herself sink into it. Let herself believe, just for a moment, that maybe this could work. That maybe she could build something real with a man who'd walked through fire to keep her alive. When they broke apart, she said, I want to go back to school, finish my degree. Okay. And I want to work. Not for you. Somewhere normal where I can be normal for a few hours a day. Okay. And I want you to be honest with me about everything. Your business, your decisions, all of it. I can't be with someone who keeps me in the dark. Lucian hesitated, then nodded. That's fair. As long as you understand some things will always be dangerous to know. I understand, but I need to trust you. And trust means honesty. Then you'll have it. They stood there in the morning light, holding each other, two broken people trying to figure out how to be whole together. It wasn't perfect. Sienna knew that. She knew Lucian would always be dangerous, would always carry darkness inside him. Knew her father's betrayal would haunt her for years. Knew the life she was choosing came with risks normal people never had to face. But she also knew she was done running, done hiding, done being the person things happened to instead of the person who made things happen. With Lucian beside her, she could be strong, could be brave, could be the woman her mother had raised her to be. And maybe that was enough. The thing about surviving, Sienna realized, was that it changed you. Not always in ways you liked, not always in ways that made sense. But it taught you what mattered, taught you the difference between what you needed and what you thought you needed. She'd spent 4 years thinking she needed safety, stability, a normal life where nothing ever hurt. What she'd actually needed was someone who saw her, really saw her, and decided she was worth fighting for anyway. Lucian was that person. Flawed, violent, dangerous, but willing to burn the world down to keep her safe. And maybe that made her flawed too, for loving him despite everything he was. But she was done apologizing for surviving, done feeling guilty for choosing herself, for choosing this strange and complicated future over the simple loneliness of before. Her mother had always said love was a choice, not a feeling. You chose to stay, chose to fight, chose to believe even when everything said you shouldn't. Sienna was choosing Lucian, choosing this life, choosing to believe that maybe, just maybe, something beautiful could grow from the ashes of everything that had burned. And if that made her reckless or foolish or broken, well, she could live with that. Because for the first time in 4 years, she wasn't just surviving anymore. She was living,